In this podcast, two Gen Xers are taking a trip down memory lane, revisiting and reflecting on the cinema of the 1980s. We'll look at the hits and the flops, the studio blockbusters and art house indies, the critically acclaimed, and the universally reviled. The series is hosted by me, Lisa Molinelli, a writer and librarian, and features Dustin Morrow, a filmmaker, author, and professor of film. So pull on your legwarmers, crank up your boombox, and hop in the DeLorean. It's time for the long rewind. Welcome to the long rewind. I'm your host, Lisa, and with me as always is Dustin.
Hello.
And we're here to talk to you about the films from the second half of 1986.
A lot of prestige pictures and a lot of like really notable, influential, and important independent films.
I think we have a lot to cover.
Yeah, we have a lot to cover. Yeah. I was looking at the list of kind of key films that I made from this period and trying to find like a thread or a way to group them.
Yeah. And
I sort of realized that maybe the most interesting way to like look at them is to look at them as being some key films from the biggest directors of that decade. Really, it's amazing how many really prominent directors had important movies in the back half of '86.
Yeah,
like I was looking at this list, it's sort of like, wow, these things all came out really close together.
I don't know how they
so
did
I think
it.
Unless you have a better sort of mode of address,
I
think maybe
great.
The best way to do it is to kind of just go through and look at them from the perspective of these filmmakers and their careers.
I agree. I mean, I also think, someone like me didn't really track directors back then, so it might be interesting for other folks who maybe don't know the directors of some of these films.
Yeah.
Too. It'll be interesting to see. Yeah, let's do it.
And I'll try to be succinct in the interest of this not being 5 hours long, because there are some really interesting movies here.
Yeah, for sure.
Oliver Stone released Platoon. Of course, Oliver Stone is a Vietnam vet and has written about that period of history extensively. And Platoon famously is based on his own experiences of fighting in Vietnam and was a huge deal. I think it won Best Picture. I guess you'll tell us at the end of the episode. I'm pretty sure it won Best Picture.
That sounds right.
And was one of a number of prestigious movies that addressed that war in the 80s.
Yeah.
David, stop me as I go through these, if there's anything you want to say.
Yeah, no, I haven't seen Platoon, and I probably should.
You should, yeah, it's a great movie.
I've never seen it, yeah.
David Cronenberg released The Fly.
Oh, yeah.
Which was very much in his wheelhouse of body horror. A remake of a film from the 50s, sci-fi classic from the 50s with Jeff Goldblum.
Yep.
Maybe this is where he met Gina Davis. They went on to get married.
Yeah.
In that era.
He kind of makes sense as The Fly.
It's a great movie.
It is. It's
totally great. Disgusting.
I mean, as someone who's not into body horror, even I think it's a great movie.
Yeah.
It can be a little hard for me to watch sometimes, but it's great. Yeah.
And just very much in a more mainstream way than his other movies, plays into a lot of the kind of fascinations and motifs and themes that David Cronenberg, who's just a great Canadian genre director, art house director, a lot of the stuff he likes to explore.
Yeah.
Another art house director who dabbles in Hollywood occasionally is David Lynch, who released maybe his most celebrated movie, which was Blue Velvet.
This is another one I haven't seen, and I suppose I probably
It's his
should,
very twisted take on the underbelly of small town America, essentially, with a truly unhinged performance by Dennis Hopper.
Whoa. That's got to be.
I'm hit or miss on a lot of David Lynch, and I feel I've watched Blue Velvet many times and never liked it. I've tried to make myself like it because I know how acclaimed it is and what a big deal it is, but I don't know. I got to say I'm with Roger Ebert on this one. He was one of the few critics that was not into it. It's not that I dislike Lynch because I love Twin Peaks.
Oh yeah, I mean he's amazing.
I love some of his other stuff. Mulholland Drive is good, but for whatever reason I was never able to really get into Blue Velvet. I like the first 30 minutes of it. And then around the time Dennis Hopper comes in, that's where it starts to lose me. Just to feel kind of depraved for the sake of being depraved.
Okay, this sounds like something that maybe I can leave off my list.
Yeah, I don't. I would be really surprised if you liked it.
I can't.
It's
From what you're saying, I don't think I would like it.
Explicit and like,
yeah,
kind of. I don't know. It's kind of gross.
Yeah, sounds like it's not for me.
Yeah,
but good on you, David Lynch.
Yeah,
well done.
Spike Lee put out "She's Gotta Have It," which was his big breakthrough movie, independent film. He, of course, went on to have a huge career, not just in the 80s, but to the present day.
To this day, yeah.
The great Australian filmmaker Peter Weir put out The Mosquito Coast.
Oh, yeah.
Which is a really great movie based on a book by, I want to say, Pico Iyer, I think, wrote that book. About a man who takes a scientist who, sort of rejects American society and consumerism and capitalism and takes his family to the rainforests of South America. And it's just a really interesting performance by Harrison Ford, a guy who normally plays kind of guy next door or kind of relatable heroes. And in that movie, he's pretty unstable and kind of almost becomes a villain by the end. It's a really interesting movie. Helen Mirren plays his wife. River Phoenix plays the son. Yeah.
It's been a while since I really liked this movie. I remember I've only seen it once.
It's underrated.
I don't remember
it deserves to be better known. It's a good movie, The Mosquito Coast. Alex Cox, punk rock masterpiece, Sid and Nancy.
Also haven't seen that one.
The story of Sid Vicious and Nancy Spungen of the Sex Pistols.
Yep.
Just a very Alex Cox is a great, he directed Repo Man, Highway to Hell, just a punk rock filmmaker. There was no better filmmaker really to make that movie than him. It feels bona fide.
Yeah, I bet it does. I've never seen it. I don't know if I should.
Yeah, I think Gary Oldman plays Sid Vicious.
That's I don't remember who plays
Nancy, it's a good movie.
Yeah.
Francis Ford Coppola put out Peggy Sue Got Married.
Oh, yeah.
Featuring our friend Kathleen in one of her very best performances.
And I also have not seen this, which I'm sure I would love it. No, well, I haven't seen it. We need to watch it.
You're a real life friend of the icon Kathleen Turner, and you have not seen Peggy Sue Got Married.
I think when you and I first met, you were you'd watched all these movies so many times that you needed to take a break, and I just haven't seen it ever.
Is this where I shameless plug my book?
Sure,
of course
let's do it.
Kathleen Turner and I wrote a book called Kathleen Turner on Acting, which is a book-length conversation between the two of us about acting and directing and the relationship between those two disciplines. Yep. We talk a lot about Peggy Sue. But yeah, you're right. It was around the time I was working on that book around the time we met, and I was deep into watching those movies over and over again. So it's possible I wouldn't want to sit down to watch Peggy Sue.
You didn't at the time, but hopefully maybe sometime soon, because I think I would probably really like it. And I have
it's lovely. It's kind of like a less poppy. It's like a gentler version of Back to the Future.
Wow.
Only female centered. Yeah, it's good.
I hear it's so good.
Roland Joffe put out a movie called The Mission.
Oh, yeah.
With Jeremy Irons and Robert De Niro.
Yeah, that's
just a beautiful movie. It has one of the most
movie.
beautiful original scores ever wrritten for a movie.
It's a very affecting movie. I like that movie a lot.
Yeah, it's about missionaries and a kind of, how would you describe his character, De Niro's character? He's kind of a...
He's how would you describe his character? He's kind of a badass.
Well, it's like capitalism versus religion and their corrupting influence of both. Yeah. And it's an interesting film. It's set in the Amazon.
I mean, I guess just think of a De Niro character being a missionary, and that's
he's not the missionary. That's just
he isn't? I thought he was. Okay,
Jeremy Irons is the missionary. De Niro he's a son of.
I thought he was also.
He's a son of privilege, but kills his brothers. He has an affair with his brother's wife, and then he kills his brother, and he's cast off, and he's he's like a rascal and like a money. He becomes kind of a raconteur, and
I'll need to see it again. I remember really liking it. I didn't remember that about his character, but yeah.
So Martin Scorsese, the great Martin Scorsese, put out The Color of Money, which was kind of a job for hire movie for him. It was a sequel to The Hustler. It's the movie that finally got Paul Newman his Oscar, but probably best remembered today as the movie where Tom Cruise like flips his pool stick around. Remember that? Did you ever see that movie?
I did. It's been a long time. I haven't seen it.
It's a lot of like fancy him jumping up on tables and tossing his stick around like he's
a cocktail audition.
But like a baton twirler or something. It's fairly It's fairly ridiculous, and it's not. I would say not top tier Scorsese. It's not a bad movie by any means.
Yeah, I remember liking it, but I've only seen it once. I don't remember it that well.
John Landis put out a movie that totally bombed, I think, at the time, but has since become a cult classic and much beloved, a film called Three Amigos.
Oh, yeah.
Which famously was the movie where Martin Short and Steve Martin met.
Yeah.
But yeah, add Chevy Chase. It's, I think the hardest I've ever laughed in a movie theater was seeing that movie. I saw that movie with my sister and my mom, and it's the only time I can actually remember falling off my chair from laughing so hard. And I didn't know that was a real thing.
It's one of those
that could happen to somebody.
Yeah, I remember.
But it happened to me watching that movie.
Yeah, that's a laugh out loud, super hard laughing movie.
As I quote that movie all the time, as Lisa will attest.
Yeah.
Would you like to kiss me on the veranda? No, lips will be fine. Oh, God, I love that movie.
Such a good movie. It's brilliant.
Frank Oz released Little Shop of Horrors, the adaptation of the Broadway musical, which was itself an adaptation of an old Roger Corman horror film. Yeah, it's great. Speaking of Steve Martin, plays the dentist.
Plays the dentist.
Yeah.
Yep.
Super fun, dark black comedy.
Yeah.
Famously had its ending changed by the studio because they thought it was too bleak.
Huh. I don't remember the original ending or the new ending, but I could believe it. Yeah.
And then getting into some stone cold classics here at the end, Rob Reiner put out Stand By Me.
Oh, gosh.
Which Stephen King says is the best adaptation of any of his works ever
it's
cinematically.
It's a pretty wonderful movie,
Jonathan Demme released Something Wild, which
also
is
fantastic.
A movie that Lisa and I discussed at length on the Dodge Movie Podcast.
Yeah.
So if you want to listen to us prattle on for 45 minutes just on that one movie alone.
With other people.
Do a search for Dodge Movie Podcast and look it up. Something Wild. A great,
so
unpredictable, just truly, as the name would suggest, wild comedy thriller with Jeff Daniels, Ray Liotta, and Melanie Griffith.
It's so good, you guys. It's really good.
One of the most legitimately unpredictable
you really
movies.
Don't know what's
like
people
happen. Throw that word around and they don't really mean it, but that's a movie where if you've never seen it and you go in cold, you will have no idea where that movie is going from scene to scene, and it will definitely not end up where you think it will based on the first 20, 30 minutes.
No, definitely not. Yeah. Great performances in that movie, and Ray Liotta is like showstopper.
Yeah. It's a movie that like somehow effortlessly changes genres several times. Starts out as kind of a wacky comedy, becomes kind of a drama, and by the end is almost a horror film.
Yeah, go listen to the episode. And watch it, frankly, if you haven't. It's great.
Yeah. And two of my favorite movies, Michael Mann's Manhunter.
Oh, yeah.
Which is an adaptation of the Thomas Harris book Red Dragon, which is, of course, the prequel to Silence of the Lambs.
Yep.
First really film appearance by the Hannibal Lecter character is in Manhunter, played by Brian Cox instead of Anthony Hopkins.
Right.
And I would argue, and this may be controversial, but I would say Brian Cox is a better Hannibal Lecter than Anthony Hopkins.
I mean, it's a great movie.
I would much less rather run into Brian Cox as Hannibal Lecter in a dark alley than Anthony Hopkins.
I would take a pass on them both. But Brian Cox is also he's kind of a burly guy, right?
Yeah.
So you might be able to take Anthony Hopkins, but.
Yeah. Well, Anthony Hopkins seems in Silence of the Lambs, which is, it's a great performance, and Silence of the Lambs is a great movie.
Yeah, it is.
Not saying otherwise.
Nope.
Neither of them is anywhere near Manhunter. But I will say that Brian Cox's Hannibal Lecter feels less overtly, obviously insane, which somehow makes him scarier to me. Yeah, he's shrewder and smarter and more conniving, and
that is scarier.
Yeah,
definitely. That's a great. I've only seen it once, but it was so good. It's such a really
very
good
stylish.
movie.
If you like Michael Mann
stylish.
and you like his kind of Miami Vice aesthetic, it's all right there in Manhunter. Great serial killer thriller.
Very
great performance by
suspenseful.
William Peterson.
Yeah, he's great.
Great premise, which is just that the idea that this profiler, played by William Peterson, is so good at his job that he actually risks his sanity every time he tries to go into the field and catch one of these guys.
Yeah.
And as the movie opens, he's retired because catching Hannibal Lecter really made him kind of lose his mind and become very dangerous to his family. So he can't do the job anymore, and he's pulled back in by the agency to go after this Tooth Fairy.
Because that's what
character.
happens.
Oh, no, the Tooth Fairy is in... Yeah, no, it's the Tooth Fairy. Anyway, great cop thriller.
It's great.
And then finally, James Cameron's masterpiece, Aliens.
Yes.
Just the militaristic action movie sequel to the Ridley Scott horror film.
Alien.
Yeah, really an amazing movie.
Yeah.
Where do you stand on the Alien versus Aliens debate?
I don't even know how to answer that. They're both so good. I mean, and they're, like you just kind of implied, their genres are a little different. So
they are.
Why should you have to choose?
The first one's definitely a horror film.
Yeah.
And the second one, I would say, is an action movie.
Like, their moods are almost different to me. So I don't even know why I would have to choose. They're both
well, you
so
don't
good.
technically have
I
to
don't
choose.
want to choose.
It's rhetorical.
They're both so good. I don't know. You probably have an opinion. I don't know
do.
that I do.
I mean,
I guess great.
I guess if you put a gun to my head, and why would you? I would pick Aliens.
Okay.
Which I love as an action movie slightly more than I love Alien as a horror movie, but I would put both of them probably in the top 5 all time of their genre. I would say
agree.
Alien is one of the 5 greatest horror movies, and I would say Aliens is definitely one of the 5 greatest action movies.
I do think I tip towards Alien. I just love the mood of it so much, and that sort of empty spaceship feel you get from it.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. But they're both amazing. I mean, Aliens is, I can't say a word bad about it.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. Yeah.
So that's the list of directors. There were a few other big movies. Crocodile Dundee was a huge hit and kind of came out of nowhere. I don't think anybody expected. Nobody knew who Paul Hogan was in the United States.
Yeah.
And the idea of this sort of like fish out of water comedy about a guy from the Australian outback coming to Manhattan is not on paper necessarily something you would think would be an immediate massive hit. And it was not a big budget movie. And so it was surprising that it was so big, but it was really big at the time.
How many of them were there?
3.
I thought there was more than 2. Yeah.
Yeah, they made a second one just a couple years later, and then they waited 30 years and made the third one I don't know, not so very long ago.
Yeah.
Star Trek 4, which was a big hit, proving that there was still a lot of life left in that franchise, even though all the stars were getting older by that point. If you don't remember, it's the one where they come to modern day, 80s, modern day of the time, contemporary San Francisco, to steal a couple whales.
Yeah,
because there's an alien threatening the world in their time, and the only thing that can communicate with it are whales.
Right.
But the whales have all been extinct, so they have to go back in time to Earth.
Yeah, that was a very 80s thing.
That is a really bananas premise.
It's pretty bananas. Yeah. Sort of like Arrival, but with whales. You know. You got to talk to the aliens, but the whales have to talk to the aliens. Anyway.
Yeah. It's goofy as hell, that movie.
Yeah.
But a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And supports the theory that the even Star Treks were good and the odd Star Treks were not as good.
I hadn't heard that.
Really?
So interesting.
Well, Star Trek 2, everybody knows is the best Star Trek movie. And then 4 is a lot of fun. And then 6 is really good. And 6 is like a murder mystery.
Huh.
But 5, 3, and 1 are definitely not as good.
Oh, interesting. I hadn't heard that theory, but I guess it seems to play out.
Yeah.
Interesting. I gotta just hand it to Star Trek also for being the franchise that is like cool with people getting older. You get a lot of older heroes. And all Star Treks. Not even just original Star Trek.
Yeah.
Next Generation, et cetera, et cetera. It's cool with its older heroes. I like that. Yeah.
My pick for maybe the best sports movie ever made, Hoosiers.
Mm-hmm. I didn't realize that was this year. I thought that was an older movie.
Yeah, it was 86.
Yeah, 86.
Yeah,
Hoosiers.
just a really great movie. And as somebody from the rural Midwest, it's just a movie that has a lot of meaning. It's about a small town that took the world by surprise and, became state champions in a state that worshiped basketball. And here was this town with a school that had like 40 kids in the whole school, and they could barely field a team because they had
so few people.
Yeah. And it's just a great true story and a great celebration of the Midwest and the small town Midwest. And so I just love it on a
of course,
sympathetic level.
Well, and isn't it one of the all-time great sports movies anyway? I mean, even if you're not like a sports person, it's a compelling movie.
Great performances by Hackman and by Dennis Hopper.
Yeah.
Hackman famously thought it was one of the worst movies ever while he was making it. Like reportedly he was saying to people on the set, like, this is going to end our careers.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, crazy.
It was a big deal, I thought.
It was a huge deal.
Movie, no?
And then two flops that were just notorious. Transformers, the movie, which is an animated...
Traumatized a generation, I believe, that movie.
An animated film that killed off... What's his name?
Optimus Prime,
Optimus Prime,
believe.
Yeah, I was never a Transformers kid. I was a G.I. Joe kid.
I wasn't either, but my brother was. So,
Yeah, Optimus Prime dies in it and apparently traumatized a bunch of kids. I got away from it somehow because
you probably
wasn't
wouldn't
into
have been,
Transformers.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's also the movie that gave us the song "You Got the Touch," which everybody thinks comes from Boogie Nights.
Boogie Nights, no.
But no, it was actually born in Transformers.
Wild.
And then finally, Howard the Duck, one of the biggest box office turkeys of all time. A movie where Leah Thompson has sex with a duck. What can you say?
God. I mean, I don't know what you can say, except that I think I saw that movie at too young an age and definitely didn't get it and asked my mom embarrassing questions about it. And no good. Yeah,
I remember seeing it. I saw it at a birthday party. This girl in my class had a birthday party, and we sat in her living room, and she put it on. And even at that time, I remember thinking, this is really exceptionally bad.
I don't know if I thought it was bad or not, but it was, it definitely seemed odd. I just remember, like, there's a scene, it's almost like it's a weird moment for me. I remember there's that scene where I think he has a condom in his wallet, and I didn't really understand what that was. And I remember asking my mom about it.
It's such a horny movie. Yeah. It's full of, like, the opening scene, he's reading Play Duck magazine, and there's like a duck with breasts.
Like feathered,
Yeah.
Oh, God.
It is really such a hornball movie. It's so inappropriate for kids. George Lucas lost his mind. Like,
it was George Lucas?
It was George Lucas,
God.
Thinking that was a good idea, that movie.
Yeah. And a lot of us did see it because people thought it was a kid's movie. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's weird, man. Yeah.
All right. I have some unsung gems. Do you have some unsung gems?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, lay it on us.
Well, I love true stories. I don't know if that's unsung, but...
It is. I'd say it is. I mean, it's in the Criterion Collection, so it's sung by some people, but I would say it's not widely known.
I love that movie. I just love it. I think it's amazing. David Byrne. I don't know... Is he directed the movie? Did he write it? I don't remember.
I don't think he wrote it, but he directed it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. How do you explain what true stories is?
It's like a mockumentary about a guy who goes to a small town in Texas and meets all the strange people that live there. And I think the idea behind it was that David Byrne was fascinated by like the National Enquirer and Star and those kind of magazines from that era that had like boy with 3 feet marries
boy.
woman
Yeah.
with beard. Those bizarre
Right.
human interest stories that may or may not have always been true. Hence the title. And so he decided to kind of frame a film around what if there was a town where all of
Yeah.
those stories were happening.
Although what's funny is I just see it as just like a sweet movie about a nice town. Although and the weirdness is, it's there, but it's not like David Lynch in your face. It's like pretty subtle. Like when they're walking around in the mall, you slowly begin to realize you're watching a bunch of twins walking around.
Yeah.
Like you slowly, like the things in it are pretty subtle to me. Maybe I'm missing the point, but I just think it's kind of a sweet movie, and I just like love everything in it and about it. The mall scene, all the.
It's
mall
very
stuff.
fitting with David Byrne's like public persona as this kind
Yeah.
of super positive,
It's
but
very
but eccentric and
positive. Yeah.
lovable guy.
It's like, it's positive eccentricity, that movie, and I love it.
Yeah, early great John Goodman.
Yeah. Oh, he's so
Performance
good.
too. And of course,
Yeah.
soundtrack by the Talking
the
Heads. So
Talking
it's an
Heads.
incredible soundtrack.
Yeah, it's great, guys. See it.
Yeah. What other unsung gems did you have?
I had, I can't really speak to this movie as much as you, but Flight of the Navigator.
Yeah.
That's a great. Again, I wasn't sure if it was such a hidden gem, but maybe.
Yeah, no, it wasn't a huge hit. It's it's a classic 80s sci-fi kids movie in an era where there were a ton of those. And it's just a thing you don't see anymore, really. Great kids sci-fi movies that don't like treat kids like dum-dums.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's a cool movie about it's a time travel movie. It's like a spaceship movie.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on in it.
Yeah.
Directed by Randall Kleiser, who made Grease
Oh,
and a bunch of other movies in that era.
isn't the voice of the spaceship? Isn't that
Paul Rubens.
Paul Rubens?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can tell when you hear
If
it.
you didn't
he like
know,
laughs
you
like
don't,
Pee
but
Wee
yeah,
Herman
right,
in a
once
few
you know.
spots.
Yeah.
Yeah, really sweet movie by the Walt Disney Studio. Great kids movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, every kid should see it. If you have kids and they haven't seen it, you should make them watch it because they'll love it.
A couple of our friends made some great hidden gems this year, I think. Night of the Creeps.
Night of the Creeps by the
I
great
love
Fred
Night of the
Decker.
Creeps. Yeah, I love that movie. Hi,
Yeah.
Fred. Such a good movie.
Yeah, Night of the Creeps. It's a kind of an homage and mashup of classic sci-fi and horror
Like creature
genre
feature. Yeah.
tropes. Yeah, creature feature. Movie's great central performance by Tom Atkins
Oh, yeah.
as the
Thrill
heroic
me.
detective. Thrill me. Yeah, he's got some great quotable lines.
He does.
Yeah, if you like Slither stole a good chunk of what happens in it from Night of the Creeps. So dig up Night of the Creeps and watch it because it's
a great character.
it's a roller coaster. It's got
Yep.
really empathetic, fun characters,
It
and
does, yeah.
it's just a relentlessly fun, good time at the movies.
Yeah, I'm a big fan.
Yeah.
Also, Dead End Drive-In by the wonderful Brian Trenchard Smith.
Yeah, Brian Trenchard Smith, the British director who made many of the great Ozploitation. That's classic Australian exploitation movies. Dead End Drive-In, I think it's his best movie. It's kind of like Mad Max in a drive-in.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's a very cool movie.
Weirdly, in the United States, it came out one day apart from another Brian Trenchard Smith movie, which was Frog Dreaming, which in the U.S. was retitled The Quest, which stars Henry Thomas as a kid an American kid who living in Australia who finds what he thinks is this sort of Loch Ness monster living in this quarry.
Oh.
Yeah, and it becomes
right.
kind of a mystery
Yeah.
movie where he's trying to figure out what is down there and why are people disappearing. And
That sounds pretty great.
yeah, it's a kids movie. Yeah, and it came out like one day away from Dead End Drive-In.
Oh, wow. Very different movies, I think.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
Yeah.
I have a couple.
Yeah, please.
The Boy Who Could Fly by Nick Castle, which is a really tender and lovely and moving kids movie. I mean, your whole family could watch it.
I think of it in a similar vein as Flight of the Navigator a little bit. There was like a time of these kind of movies, and this was that time.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's a shame that they don't make movies
Yeah, it
like
is a
this
shame,
anymore.
actually.
Movies that treat kids as like fully formed
People. Yeah.
with like
No, it's
hopes and
true.
dreams and worries and anxieties. And
it does make it a movie for the whole family. Like you can appreciate it as an adult too, I think, for those reasons.
yeah, it's a really beautiful movie, really moving film.
Yeah.
And at the other end of the spectrum, a kind of disturbing and dark thriller called Extremities, which is based on a play by William Mastrosimone, which is about a woman who, in the film, is played by Farrah Fawcett, who manages to turn the tables on a man that invades her home to sexually assault her and torture her. And she manages to turn the tables on him and trap him in her fireplace.
Oh.
And then her roommates come home, and it becomes this kind of morality play on whether, whether he deserves any mercy.
Right.
It's a very, it sounds like an exploitation premise, but it's actually a very smartly scripted film based on a good piece of theater. And it, along with a highly rated, well-reviewed TV movie called The Burning Bed, kind of rewrote at the time the narrative around Farrah Fawcett, who was seen as kind of a airheaded pinup from Charlie's Angels. Kind of rewrote her narrative as, a really gifted actor. Yeah.
Great. Wow.
Yeah, she's great in the movie. Alfre Woodard is in it. Diana Scarwood.
Wow.
James, I can't think of who it is. It's not James Remar. I'm trying to think of who plays the
guy in the fireplace.
Yeah, the guy in the fireplace. Yeah. It's intense. It's a grueling drama. But if you like that sort of thing, buckle up. Because it's quite a ride.
A big piece for female actors at that time, I would think.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, wow.
So I have some B movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, No Mercy, which is a really trashy New Orleans set crime thriller with Richard Gere and Kim Basinger.
Oh, wow.
Kind of a New Orleans noir.
I love a
set
New Orleans
in the swamps.
noir. I haven't seen this one. Yeah.
It's pretty ridiculous and pretty dumb and pretty fun. Mm-hmm. And Big Trouble in Little China.
Oh God! Why didn't I say that one? I love Big Trouble.
I know you love. I was surprised you didn't mention it.
I lost. That was back. I had it in key films. Because I love it.
Yeah, it was a total bomb. So I don't know that you can argue that it was any kind of key film.
It's only key because I love it.
It kind of came and went. I think it found its audience on cable, like on HBO.
Probably. Yeah.
But is now like by those in the know, it is beloved.
I love Big Trouble in Little China so much. Yeah.
How would you describe it?
That's so mean. How do you describe Big Trouble in Little China? I don't know. How do you describe it? It's almost like watching a comic book.
If you're listening to an 80s movie podcast, you probably know Big Trouble in Little China, and we don't need to describe it. But it's John Carpenter.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a pulp, like an old pulp paperback novel, kind of like an Alan Quartermain
or like
adventure.
A comic book. It's very adventure.
Yeah, like a comic book about a really dumb guy who stumbles into a big conspiracy in Chinatown and in San Francisco and ends up way over his head and thinks he's saving the day, but is at every step of the way actually making things worse.
Yeah, getting knocked out.
A really great comic performance by
Kurt
Russell. And a movie that like apparently, to hear Carpenter tell the story, the studio just didn't get why he wasn't heroic. They were like Carpenter says the notes he was getting from the studio were like, can't he like do heroic things? Like, doesn't he seem like kind of an idiot? And Carpenter's like, well, that was the point. Yeah. He's supposed to be an idiot.
Yeah. I mean, he does heroic things, but they don't work out. Like that's.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, they really don't. Yeah, it's so great. I mean, it's very over the top, very colorful. Yeah, it's just super fun.
Yeah.
I don't know. I love it.
I had a ton of movies in the kind of so bad it's good quality.
There's quite a few.
Did you have any?
I had a few, and I'm sure we've got lots of overlap.
Yeah. Well, let's hear yours.
Well, Maximum Overdrive.
Yep.
And
which is Stephen King's only outing as a director. A truly terrible adaptation of his short story Trucks, which was in the Night Shift book, about machines coming to life and turning on humans. Stars Emilio Estevez. It is awful. And apparently, like, King himself, I mean, he calls it the moron movie. That's what he calls it. He has also said that he has no memory of making it because he was coked out of his brain, which when you watch the movie, you're like, of course.
Well, of course.
This movie was clearly made by somebody
definitely.
coked out of their head. Yeah.
I mean, God bless Stephen King. Seems pretty self-aware. So he's willing to self-criticize. But it's a wild movie, and there's some stuff worth mentioning.
Great soundtrack by AC/DC, though.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
there's some blank squares worth mentioning in that movie.
Yeah, it's insane. Yeah. People getting like Coke machines shooting cans at people, hair dryers strangling people,
baseball team.
People getting run over by lawnmowers.
Yeah.
It's really dumb.
Yeah, but I mean, I saw it once, and it was fun to see once.
Yeah, for sure.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
I also had The Wraith.
Yeah,
The Wraith, man.
The Wraith is a movie about a ghost car guy that gets murdered, and he comes back as Charlie Sheen with a supercharged car, and he goes after the car bandits in town that killed him.
It's a little confusing, to be honest.
No, it doesn't make a lot of sense from scene to scene, but it's weirdly watchable and a lot of fun.
Yeah, very stylish too, I think. Yeah. I also had, I think you and I've only seen it once, Solar Babies.
Solar Babies is horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one, I don't know if that's so bad it's good or just so bad it's bad.
Well, yeah, but it felt worth mentioning because it's pretty crazy.
It's like they're on roller skates. Yeah. It's set in the future.
It's like Mad Max on roller skates,
kind of. Only with only they're all teens.
Yeah, they're all teens.
The thing that really blew my mind about that movie, which I didn't hear about until it was over, until after I'd seen it, was that it was produced by Mel Brooks.
Yep, that blew my mind too. Mel Brooks would be the furthest from your mind watching this movie, probably, but there it is. This is also
what a title, though.
Oh
Solar
my God,
Babies.
I know. And I don't remember the title making a lick.
It sounds like a candy,
either.
like a rainbow. Like it would be like a rainbow candy, like a Skittles ripoff.
Definitely. I also had one that I know made an impression on you. The peanut butter solution.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Let's talk about the peanut butter solution.
Well, people that are listening to this that know the peanut butter solution all just collectively went, oh my God, yes, the peanut butter solution. Because if you've seen it, you know, especially if you saw it as a kid.
Well,
it's a movie that provoked a generation of kids to have terrible nightmares.
Yeah.
It's ostensibly a kid's movie. But it's a kid that sees something so terrifying that he loses all his hair.
Yeah.
And then I can't remember where he gets, I think it's from his friend, gives him this recipe.
I guess.
To put this stuff of which the key ingredient is peanut butter on his head that would make his hair grow. And so he does. He puts it on his head, and his hair won't stop growing, which is to the point where it becomes kind of nightmarish and disturbing. Yeah. Like he's filling rooms with his hair, which if you're watching this as a really little impressionable kid is really kind of terrifying.
I mean, that's even disturbing.
And his friend puts it on his pubic hair, and the kid's pubic hair won't stop growing. And then the kids are kidnapped by this kind of toy maker, this evil toy maker who wants to cut off their ever-growing hair and turn it into paintbrushes at his paintbrush factory.
And they're like magic too, right?
Yeah.
Somehow?
And the paintbrushes are magic because the hair is magic, and he hangs the kids from the ceiling. It's full of all this stuff that is just absolutely nightmare.
Kind of Hans Christian Andersen when you think about it.
Oh, it's very like old fairy tale type stuff. It's a Canadian, very low budget Canadian movie.
Is this one of these Canadian tax shelter movies?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of these movies that as a kid you would just stumble on it on HBO, and then it would haunt your dreams for years.
I believe it also has an end credit, or maybe in the middle of the movie, song by Celine Dion.
Yes, it does. Yeah. Celine Dion.
Yeah, early
does the
Celine
song.
Dion. It's a wild, wild movie,
It's
y'all.
wild,
It's crazy. I've only seen it once, and I think that was enough for me. But yeah, worth noting. I also just want to make a note that I noticed when I was going through the list that it looked like on August 22nd, the following movies were released. You might have lost your mind if you went to see all of these that weekend.
Okay.
Dead End Drive-In,
Yep.
Night of the Creeps,
Yeah.
The Peanut Butter Solution, Reformed Schoolgirls, Texas Chainsaw 2, and Thrashin', all on August 22nd.
Lord.
What a weekend, right?
It's like a B-movie parade of fun and delights. Yeah.
I just couldn't believe all those movies.
Thrashin', I forgot about that. That's the Josh Brolin skateboarding movie.
Yeah, so I just couldn't believe those all existed somehow on the same weekend. That's pretty crazy.
I remember I saw Josh Brolin in an interview not too long ago, and somebody asked him, they're like, I can't remember how they got on it, but they basically asked him if there's any of his movies he's like ashamed of or anything. Mm-hmm. And he goes, he's like, there are, but I don't name them anymore. He's like, because I used to always mention this movie I made when I was a teenager called Thrashin', which is a terrible skateboarding movie. He's like, but then I started running into people who would come up to me and be like, Thrashin' is my favorite movie. It meant so much to me as a kid. And then I would look him in the face and go, that's the worst movie ever made. And I would just see their face fall.
Oh, yeah.
And he's like, so I'm not going to do that anymore. He's like, if every movie has somebody who loves it, and if you love Thrashin', he's like, I'm not going to be the person to take that away from you. And I always thought that was kind of a cool
yeah, that is cool. That's
outlook.
really nice. Yeah, I mean, I've never seen it, but I did know it was a skateboarding movie.
All right, I have a few so bad it's good
let's hear
movies,
it.
which I'll fly through here real
Please.
quick. Wisdom, another Emilio Estevez's second entry on the so bad it's good list in this short period. A movie he wrote and directed. It's kind of a take on Bonnie and Clyde with him and Demi Moore. I think they were dating at the time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they roar through the Midwest, robbing banks and burning like mortgage statements to like free the farmers who are. It's kind of also a farm crisis movie. Weirdly, yeah.
I mean,
it's not good,
fun,
but it's super fun. Yeah, it's really fun. Mm-hmm. The Golden Child, which is a terrible Eddie Murphy meets kind of Indiana Jones action comedy of him like running through the Far East trying to save this kid, but like fighting monsters and magic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Similar to Big Trouble, I suppose, in that way. There's like monsters and magic in that.
It was a big hit because Eddie was the biggest star in the world at the time, but it's not a good movie. A similar movie, actually, Firewalker, which also is a ripoff of Indiana Jones. It's a Canon Films movie with Chuck Norris and Louis Gossett Jr. As fortune hunters.
Oh, wow.
It's a bad ripoff of Indiana Jones.
Gosh.
But it was an effort by Chuck Norris to kind of expand his audience to include families. It's kind of a PG, more rollicking comedy movie than his previous movies.
Interesting.
Yeah. Huh. Avenging Force, which was another Canon Films classic. It was meant for Chuck Norris, but it was meant to be a sequel to Invasion USA.
Oh.
He didn't want to do it, so it went to Michael Dudikoff of American Ninja instead, and Steve James, also of American Ninja, and it's a New Orleans set take on the most dangerous game, set in the swamps of New Orleans.
I've seen this. Okay.
Yeah. It's terrible and fun, which makes it terribly fun.
Yeah.
Out of Bounds, which is a action movie starring Anthony Michael Hall, who was attempting to change his image at the time from the kind of nerdy teen. And it's one of these classic, that setup where the rube from Iowa goes to LA and picks up the wrong suitcase by accident. And so then the bad guys are pursuing him across LA trying to get their suitcase back.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really bad, but fun.
Yeah.
And finally, Tough Guys. A Touchstone
Tough
Pictures
Guys.
release with Kirk Douglas and Burt Lancaster in their final pair up on screen as two guys that bank robbers who get out of prison after like 30 years. So it's the 80s and crime has changed and the world has changed. And they're not even sure they're not sure what to do with themselves, and they find that they don't really fit into current society, and so they decide to rob a train.
Yeah.
It's really fun.
I actually really love that movie.
It's very charming.
It's great. Yeah, it is charming.
All right, do you want to give us the Oscars and the box office?
Absolutely.
Great.
Okay, Oscars first?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so Oscars for 1986. Best Picture, as you mentioned, was Platoon. Best Actor, I think you also mentioned, was Paul Newman for The Color of Money. Best Actress was Marlee Matlin for a movie we haven't mentioned, Children of a Lesser God.
Yep.
Supporting actor was Michael Caine for Hannah and Her Sisters, which I think you mentioned. Supporting actress Diane Wiest for Hannah and Her Sisters also. And Best Director was Oliver Stone for Platoon.
Mm-hmm.
Best Song was good old Take My Breath Away from Top Gun. Berlin. Yeah. So Top Gun got in there with Best Song. So.
All right, what were the box office champions
office for 1986? Okay, bottom up, we've got Ferris Bueller's Day Off at number 10. 9 was Ruthless People.
Did we forget to mention Ferris Bueller's Day Off?
Somehow it didn't. That's weird. You'd think that maybe, I don't know. Yeah.
I guess so. That's weird that we would have missed that.
Weird that we would have missed that. But Ferris Bueller's awesome. We love Ferris Bueller.
Was that definitely an 86 movie?
It's what it says on my highest grossing films list.
That doesn't seem right.
No, that doesn't.
I'm looking
seem
it up right
okay.
now because it seems like maybe it was one of those where it was a holdover. No, it was. It was 86. It came out on June 11th. 86.
I don't know why.
Somehow we didn't mention old Abe Froman, the sausage king of Chicago.
Man, there's so much to say about Ferris Bueller too.
It's a classic.
It's a total classic. Well, maybe we can talk about it.
I have to readjust my top 10 real quick while you're doing that.
No kidding. Well, maybe we'll have to discuss it in rewindable moments because there's so many. 9 was Ruthless People.
Mm-hmm.
8 was The Golden Child. 7 was Aliens. 6 was Back to School.
Yep.
5 was Star Trek 4. 4, well, I'm surprised this one didn't come up either because this is a favorite of mine, The Karate Kid Part 2. I don't remember seeing that on my calendar, and I love that movie.
Well, I don't remember seeing Ruthless People.
Me neither.
Because I love Ruthless People.
Maybe our 1986 calendar was defective.
Yeah, I think it was.
A few big ones missing there. Number 3 was Platoon. Number 2 was Crocodile Dundee. And number 1 was Top Gun, of course. So, yeah, a couple of big movies for you and I in the top 10 that somehow were not on our calendar, I think. Because we would have mentioned it. mentioned both of those, I think. So, yeah.
I mean, Back to School was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
That was that goofy Rodney Dangerfield goes to college movie, which is better than it has any right to be.
I haven't seen it, but I know it was a really big movie.
Yeah, it was a huge hit, obviously, and it was fun.
Yep.
I love Ruthless People. I can't believe I missed that one.
Yeah.
That's a great, it's by the Zucker brothers who made Airplane and Police Squad and Naked Gun and all those.
Ruthless People is so fun.
Yeah, it's Danny DeVito and his wife, Bette Midler, is kidnapped and he hates her. And so he refuses to pay the ransom. And so they keep marking her down and he still refuses to pay it. And she's great. It's one of that string of comedies that Bette Midler made for Touchstone Pictures.
Yeah.
It's very ribald. Is that a word I can use?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
It's very fun.
Yeah. Well, and she's kidnapped by what Judge
Reinhold and Helen Slater as two they're
very mild mannered.
Yeah, very mild mannered people who should be kidnapping people.
And once she realizes she's being marked down and her husband doesn't want her back, she
teams up with them.
She teams up with them. It's a lot of fun. It's a great movie.
Yeah, super fun movie.
And I mean, Ferris Bueller's Day Off. That's like an iconic 80s movie that really, I don't know why that wasn't on the calendar, but it should have been. What do you say? I mean,
there's nothing left to say about Ferris Bueller that hasn't already been said.
So
it's great. It's one of the only movies ever made where somebody breaking the fourth wall is not obnoxious.
Yeah, it actually works.
It's just a great performance by Matthew
One
Broderick.
of the best.
Yeah.
He makes
Great
you-
John Hughes. John Hughes firing at the top of his game.
Yeah, so good. Plenty of rewindable moments, so we can.
And what would you like to
discuss it
say
more.
about Karate Kid 2?
Well, I mean, I know it's not normal opinion, but I guess I have a childhood nostalgic love for that movie because I thought it was so romantic. I thought that movie was the best when I think I saw it in the theater, which, I was like, 8 years old in 1986. So I just thought it was swoon worthy. I loved every minute of it. So even though I know obviously The Karate Kid is probably the better film, but they go to Okinawa and Daniel is steeped in this, the Japanese Okinawan culture, and he meets a girl and they have a tea ceremony, which I just thought was the greatest thing ever. And there's that big storm scene at the end.
Yep.
Where, Daniel, of course, saves the day again.
Plus the song by Peter Cetera.
Oh my God, the song,
What was the
Glory
song?
of Love.
Glory of Love, that's
which,
right.
Of course, I thought was the super.
I am a man who will fight
for you. Oh, and of course, the fight he has with the sort of villain who you also you see in he's in Better Off Dead. He's one of the.
Oh gosh, that's right.
He's one of the drivers.
He's the guy that talks like Howard Cosell.
Yeah, he's the guy
in
who
the car.
talks like Howard, but
Yeah.
he plays the villain, and Daniel has a
and
fight
who
to the
comes back
death
in
with
Cobra
him.
Kai in a way that's very fun and rewarding.
He's great in Cobra Kai. So I don't know. I mean, I'm probably one of few enormous fans of.
All right,
Karate Kid Part 2.
let's do a rewindable moments,
Okay,
and then
yeah,
we'll wrap it up here.
Let's do it.
What were you want me to go first, or do you want to
you
go
go
first?
first. I got to get to my notes.
All right, I had a bunch because there were so many movies I absolutely loved from this time.
Yep.
So from Three Amigos to Singing Bush.
Yep, that's one of mine.
And the song Blue Shadows when the horses start singing with them, like the whole thing. Downtown from Little Shop of Horrors.
Yeah, that's great.
Love that musical number.
Mm-hmm.
The initial assault in Aliens.
Oh yeah.
Where Ripley kind of takes charge and she gets behind the wheel of that tank, that kind of space tank, and drives in to save the Marines. And also the scene where they've sealed off the doors and the aliens are coming and they're using that locator that tells them the proximity.
God, yeah.
And then they're coming in and Hudson is Bill Paxton's going, 30 yards, 20 yards,
my
10
God.
yards, and then Ripley goes, that can't be, that's inside the room. And then they all realize that they're above them.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
that's
in the vents.
Such an effective
great scene.
Yeah.
In Stand By Me, the run across the train trestle where they're trying to beat the train.
Yeah.
And also the ending, which I find really moving,
Oh my
where
God,
Richard
yeah.
Dreyfuss tells the story of what became
Happened,
of
yeah.
each of them and how they
Yeah.
grew apart and how River Phoenix's character managed to get his life together but was then killed trying to break up a fight. It's just heartbreaking. And Dreyfuss is, for making such a small contribution to that movie, makes a really effective one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, agreed.
The ending fight scene in Something Wild,
oh yeah.
which is just one of the tensest scenes in any 80s movie.
Yeah.
I think that scene is scary as hell.
Yeah. It sure is.
The Hannibal Lecter scenes in Manhunter.
Mm-hmm.
There's a scene where Lecter gets a phone that he then rewires and uses to make a bunch of deceptive calls to get Will Graham's, the hero's, home address, which he then gets out through another deceptive manner to the killer. All this from his cell. It's incredible. The ending of Crocodile Dundee, where they're in the subway station and they're passing messages back and forth among all these like New Yorkers with attitude.
Oh wow, I had forgotten.
Do you remember that scene?
I had forgotten.
Oh, it's great. It's great. And then at the end, Crocodile Dundee, to get to the girl, walks across the heads of all the subway.
I remember, yeah,
stepping
I do
on their
remember that.
heads.
Yeah.
The scene in Hoosiers where Jimmy comes in and saves the coach's job. The town is fed up with him and they're ready to kick him out. And then the star player, Jimmy, who has up to that point refused to play, comes into the town meeting and he says, I think it's time for me to start playing. And the whole town is overjoyed. And then he goes, but the coach stays. If coach goes, I go. And the whole town's like, oh, crap. And then they re-vote to save the coach's job. It's a great scene.
Cool.
The fight in Big Trouble in Little China in the alley where they first see Lo Pan. And they mow him down. But there's this whole classic kind of martial arts battle between these two warring factions or families or whatever they are. And then the three guys that control the weather
Yeah.
come
I can't
down and
remember, right.
kick everybody's ass.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Such
So
a
good.
bizarre scene.
Yep.
And so early in the movie, it really sets you up for like, you watch that scene and you're like, what is this movie?
Yeah, yeah.
And then I just added this
Yeah.
in the last couple seconds since we just found out the parade scene, of course,
Oh my
and Ferris
God,
Bueller.
of
But also,
course.
I really love the beautiful wordless sequence in the art museum.
I love that too.
With the
Please
Smith
let me get
song.
what I want. Yeah.
Where they're looking at the art and
love
what's his
that.
name? Ferris's friend?
Cameron.
Yeah, Cameron kind of gets lost in that painting.
The pointillism, the Georges Seurat
Yeah.
painting. Yeah. That's a great scene. I love that too.
What do you got? What I miss?
Not a lot. True Stories, the mall fashion show, and the song over the mall fashion show. I love
the mall
that.
fashion show and
I
True
love
Stories
it so
is
much.
great.
And just them walking around the mall is fantastic. And Wild Wild Life, of course, is super fun. There's a lot of great rewindable moments in True Stories, but those are the ones that stick out. The diner scene in Something Wild is also a really super tense, great scene, I think.
Yeah.
In Stand By Me, I had when they tell stories at night.
Yeah.
It's not even for, although the story I know is really, popular and famous, but just them telling stories to each other.
Yeah.
I like. Night of the Creeps. I love it when the sorority girl gets the flamethrower. And the 50s opening, I like a lot.
Yeah.
And,
And the scene in the garden shed where they end up holing up in the garden shed. Yeah.
That's really cool. And I just like the friend, JC. So
And
like
anything
a lot
with
of
Tom
things.
Atkins.
Oh, anything with Tom Atkins. He's great. And well, again, I should amend this to add the tea ceremony scene from Karate Kid Part 2 because I love it, even though I'm crazy. Yes, I love
Not
that.
crazy. It's a great movie.
Yeah,
It's fun.
It is fun. I think those were
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's do our top 10s.
Okay. Top 10s. You want to go first?
Do you want to amend yours now, knowing that Karate Kid 2 came out?
Doing it on the fly. Yeah, that's going to have to be in there, I guess. But I don't really know. Not looking at it, I'm not sure where to put it. So maybe it'll just be.
Should I go first?
Yeah, you go first. Go ahead.
All right. Here's my top 10. I didn't amend it, although I would add both Ferris Bueller and Ruthless People to my honorable mentions.
Yes. Yeah.
Which again just shows you how amazing this
was
decade
a good year.
was.
Yeah, for sure.
That I couldn't get those into my top 10.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, here's my top 10. Number 10, The Boy Who Could Fly. Number 9, At Close Range. Number 8, Highlander. Number 7, Something Wild. Number 6, Stand By Me. Number 5, Lucas. Number 4, Top Gun. Number 3, Manhunter. Number 2, Hoosiers. And my favorite movie of 86 was Aliens.
Nice.
Oh, and my honorable mentions, of which there are plenty.
Yes. Oh my
Pretty
gosh.
in Pink,
Yep.
FX, Rad, The Fly, The Mosquito Coast, The Mission, Three Amigos, True Stories, Fly to the Navigator, Big Trouble in Little China, Night of the Creeps, Ruthless People, and Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
So I don't know that I have the mental energy to try to insert the ones that we missed.
That's fine.
So just so you know, probably like 11, somewhere.
The Karate Kid 2 would probably be number 1, right?
It's probably not number 1, but let's say it's 11, right?
Okay.
That would be 11 probably. Karate Kid 2 and Ferris Bueller would be in there too. And you just said another really good one that I'm forgetting. Oh, Top Gun. For some reason, Top Gun I just missed that it was 86. So that should be in there too. But we're going to put that aside. I've got 10, Pretty in Pink, 9, Night of the Creeps, 8, Stand By Me, 7, Big Trouble in Little China, 6, Something Wild, 5, True Stories, 4, Highlander, 3, Three Amigos, 2, Legend, and 1, Aliens. Just
Whoa,
like you.
look at the high mark for Legend.
I mean, I love Legend.
Yeah.
Look, I just do.
What was number 1?
Aliens. Just
Aliens.
like you.
Wow,
Same
yeah,
as you.
we have the same one.
And some honorable mentions beyond the ones we discussed. Hoosiers, Dead End Drive-In, Tough Guys, The Wraith, Manhunter, and The Mission.
I didn't know you'd seen Dead End Drive-In.
Yeah, we watched it once.
Oh.
You and I. Yep. It's good.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah. And then there's a bunch I just need to see from that year. Like Peggy Sue Got Married, The Name of the Rose, Hannah and Her Sisters, She's Gotta Have It. I mean, there's just a lot of things I have not seen that I frankly should. So, yep.
Cool.
So, yeah, I guess that's it for 1986.
Yeah.
We've done it.
It was a good year.
It was a great year.
Especially the back half of the year.
Yeah, it was a loaded back half. So,
Yeah.
Thanks for listening today, and next time we will be hitting you with 1987.
All right. See you then.
You've been listening to The Long Rewind. The program is produced by Dustin Morrow and hosted by me, Lisa Molinelli. If you enjoy the show, please consider hitting the subscribe button, leave us a good review on your podcast app, and tell your friends about the program. We'll see you next time. Thanks for listening.